Hi, everybody. Welcome to Carline Catch Up. You are here with Christine and Sonia. Hello. We are getting ready to kick off a brain break. So, in general, we're two working moms. We're curious. We have pretty diverse and deep, at this point in our careers, backgrounds in research and consulting. And then we have some subject matter expertise that's kind of different. But what we have in common is insatiable curiosity and humor and connectivity through life. We do not want to compartmentalize our thoughts. We do not want to say, like, we are serious all the time and let's only talk about work. We connect work with what's going on with our kids, with something we read in the news, with health things that we've learned about our lives and our hopes and dreams. So every once in a while, though, we do take a very left-handed turn away from academic kind of thoughts and pursuits alone. And we call these brain breaks. So you'll get to kind of hear us talk about a topic that is a little more lighthearted, but we are just as curious about it. And we have a topic like that today. And in fact, it does relate to our kids and how parenting is really challenging because your kids ask you things that sometimes you can't answer. And it's comforting to them. It seems like it would be comforting to them when they ask. They want you to know the answer and they want you to tell them the story and the history. And sometimes you just don't know because nobody knows. Sometimes you don't know because that's not a personal interest of yours and you need time to research it first. Um, and every once in a while, you get really lucky where they like relight the lamp in your head to be curious about something that you used to be curious about. We just taped an episode about that where we dug into thinking about space travel because our kids were learning about it and it was in the news and it lit that spark again. So here's one today. We're going to go all the way back to our kids' curiosity about dinosaurs. Our two oldest kids have been consistently interested in dinosaurs since they were really little. I don't know if it's a first kid thing or an every kid thing, but a lot has changed in common knowledge about dinosaurs since Christine and I were kids, and we've been kind of just going back and forth and talking about that. We were fascinated with them, with the facts that we thought. It's even more fascinating now that our kids have learned what we've learned and then some, and have been changing what we like the images we've had in our heads, and that's also changed the questions we have. Yeah, Christine's daughter asked if we, not Christine and me,
Clearly not. We're way too young for this.
right, not if Christine and I were, but we're just saying like human beings, we're dinosaurs and human beings around at the same time. And for a lot of people, you might just laugh that away and be like, of course not, because we didn't read that in the books that we read. And some of us weren't taught to question that. And depending on what your religious background is, you certainly were told not to question that. So we just thought that was a fascinating question and one worth exploring. So Christine's going to try to kick off what we've been discussing here.
Yeah, so this topic and this question has really sparked a lot of debate and myths, and there's been blockbuster movies about this. Jurassic Park, I mean, a blockbuster hit about us coexisting with dinosaurs. So the really big question here is, did dinosaurs and humans ever coexist?
Yeah. One of the questions it kicked off for me too, as a person of faith, is how does the story of dinosaurs, what happened to them, and the story of human evolution intertwine or not? What are the different options, and what are people talking about right now? So,
So let's start with what we do know. Okay. So Dinosaurs ruled the earth for about 165 million years. So basically from the Triassic period to the Cretaceous, which ended roughly around 66 million years ago with the asteroid.
Yeah. All of my son's books have this timeline at the bottom of the dinosaur
Yes.
book, and it goes through those periods. And then 66 million years ago, and then the timeline stops, does not talk about modern time or humans at all.
Yeah. Well, and so there have been, though, some recent studies that suggest that maybe early mammalian ancestors, which eventually did lead to humans, did exist alongside dinosaurs.
Yeah. And then there's this crazy addition in dinosaur knowledge that was not around when Christine and I were kids just a few years ago. That dinosaurs are actually related to birds. I mean, it just blows our mind that dinosaurs may have had feathers. Now we're finding feathers in fossils, and that they may have had hollow bones like birds. And maybe that's why some of the dinosaurs could fly. Like that was always something I couldn't make sense of. Why did some dinosaurs have to stay on land and some could fly? That just seemed like two different species lines to me. But now turns out related, possibly related, and maybe also explains how some animals ended up surviving if they could fly to different places and they weren't landlocked. Or, I mean, it's so cool. And the pictures of dinosaurs now in books and movies and things are vivid because, of course, with feathers, you see colors too, for a lot of different reasons. And, when we were kids, dinosaurs were all different shades of brown and brownish yellow. So, uh, yeah, this is fascinating.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting the time that dinosaurs roamed the earth. It almost kind of boggles the mind how long that actually was. And living down in Florida here now, I see a lot of alligators everywhere. And, they look prehistoric. There's structure, everything about them looks prehistoric. And recently, they've figured out a way to survive ice and snow. And so, what they do when it gets really cold and a lake or wherever they're at is about to freeze over, they basically pop their snout out of the ice and they lower their breathing down to about one breath a minute. And they just freeze like that and survive until that melts and thaws. And in my head, when I see the pictures of this, the first thing I think about is this is why dinosaurs survived so long. They adapted. Um, and it's just yeah, it just blows my mind. And so we've been living alongside birds, and birds lived alongside dinosaurs. So kind of technically speaking, like
Yeah.
down the chain we've lived alongside of some really prehistoric creatures that were around during that time.
Yeah. I think your question and your daughter's question had me thinking about just like if the story of Adam and Eve is true and there was a specific time humans came into the picture, where exactly was that, and how was that possible if everything was wiped out? And evolution, the idea of evolution plays a huge role, but the evolution from dinosaurs to early mammals or pre-mammals all the way through, how can you even make that timing leap is so huge. And you're saying that there is actually evidence now that there may have been coexistence, would completely change a lot of religious philosophies or theories that have tried to marry these ideas. Sorry, there are several religions and then theories within religions that allow for huge time blocks. Like there is a way that you can think about the 6 days um, of divine creation not being days, but epics and these vast periods. And there's a part of Hinduism that kind of believes that too. So it's not just Christianity that could see that as the interpretation and not just 6 literal days. Um, and the idea that we did potentially coexist doesn't necessarily currently show up in the documents for these religions, in the major documents that I'm aware of. So I'm just kind of curious where if there is more hard evidence on the coexistence of the dinosaurs and early mammals at the same time, and it being the 265 million years ago, or even 66 million years ago, right before the asteroid hit. Where is the documentation in the opposite direction of us having talked about or seen or known about these beasts or creatures or these unhuman like huge creatures? It's all unless it's like we do find out several years from now that like Transformers were real and really they have always existed ahead of time and they were here before us. And
I mean, I don't think you can rule anything out. My question that I keep coming back to is how come nobody's ever seen a ghost dinosaur?
oh,
Because people certainly claim to see human
right.
ghosts.
Yeah,
They say that animals can potentially maybe see animal ghosts. And so I would think there should be a lot of dinosaur ghosts roaming around. Maybe
possibly.
that's why our backs hurt. Maybe we just don't know it. And some dinosaur ghost is just stepping on our back when we wake up.
Or we're running away from it in our sleep. That's
That
possible.
too.
Yeah, that's possible.
That
Um,
too.
my kid told me this interesting fact the other day, again, reading from one of his weekly readers, I think, that we were reading something about owls, and he reminded me that birds have special joints in their necks. And he was telling me specifically, he's pretty sure it's ball and socket joints, the same kind that you have, like here where your arm attaches into your shoulders. So it doesn't really turn like a full 360, but it's close enough where you can make a full circle, even though you may hear some cracking as you go.
I was gonna say if I do that, I'm gonna throw my back out somehow.
Oh my gosh, this morning my son was playing with Legos before the bus came and he was trying to clean them up and he had lost a piece. He was looking for the piece and he said, "Mommy, can you help me?" So I get down on the floor to look and my knee cracked, but he didn't know that's what it was. And he was like, "Oh, stop, Mommy. Go back. I think you landed on a Lego and you just broke it." And I said, "Oh, no, sweetie, those are these old bones. Sorry. I didn't find your piece yet. That was just mommy in pain." Okay. And things shifting around inside that didn't used to shift. Um, anyway, but
Yep.
so he reminded me that like birds have these ball and socket joints. And it made sense to me because when I was little, we definitely learned how owls were so unique because they could turn their heads all the way around. And, we talked about that. But I think if he is right, it's because they have ball and socket joints on their necks. And then thinking about this newer knowledge that you and I have about the relationship between dinosaurs and birds, I wondered, could dinosaurs do that? And did that make a huge difference in the ones who were able to survive and evolve in things? Did they all have the ball and socket, or were there ones that were more closely related, even if it wasn't about flight, but if just dinosaurs in general related to birds? Were there ones that could see predators coming, not necessarily because their eyesight was great, but because they had this ability to turn? and it made them more fit for survival. So I don't know, so many more questions to look up and look into, and will probably be in the dinosaur books that are read to our grandkids and great grandkids, but not to us.
I certainly am very curious to hear how they've scientifically assigned different sounds to dinosaurs. Since now we don't know whether they have feathers, I am not entirely convinced that a T-Rex didn't gobble like a turkey or make some other noise that was less intimidating, which would really just make it less intimidating altogether if that was the
That's a
case.
good point too. Like in newer dinosaur depiction videos that I've seen with my kid, the dinosaurs make screeching noises and horn blowing noises. And it seems like things that archaeologists thought were specific body parts, they're now reimagining weren't what they thought. So there's one dinosaur that lived in the sea that they had mixed up the neck and the tail. For a long time, they had thought this dinosaur was a swimmer with a very long neck. And then they recently looked at it and realized that what they thought was a neck, it actually has a much shorter neck. It actually had a really long tail. And then that made it a really good swimmer. And same thing with some of the things that were like on their head, they thought were just for attracting a mate for beautification. Now they're thinking that they were used for making sounds and communication as the dinosaurs traveled and like, you know, got into fights and just needed to communicate about different things. And I just don't know who to trust anymore. We'll just say that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look at every animal right now. They all have different sounds. I mean, imagine when we are long, long gone and unfortunately extinction to a lot of species. If in the far distant future somebody assigned a growl to an ant, it would seem silly, but it could happen.
It could happen. They could say, oh, we were wrong about this, or we think maybe there were some that did and we didn't recognize it.
Definitely the fire ants that are growling, I can tell you that.
So we don't, I guess, in the end, have the definitive answer if they did coexist, but it seems like the door has been cracked open to the possibility, and we should all get ready to have some kind of explanation or response for our kids. It seems like they keep asking about these dinosaurs and human evolution. So those questions,
Fascinating about science. We just keep learning, right?
keep asking and keep learning. That's right.
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on our brain break today. We hope to see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.